Welcome to Pittsburgh Works, everyone. Wendell Young is back. He is from the UFCW. He's the president of Local 1776. And joining us in this first segment is Tony Helfer. He's the president of Local 23 of the UFCW. The Pennsylvania AFL-CIO convention begins tomorrow at the beautiful Wyndham Grand in Pittsburgh, and that's where we are right now. Tell everybody a little bit about our first guest. Go right ahead, Wendell. It's good to see you again, and welcome back to KDKA.
Rob, thanks for coming. When we last spoke, we were at the Wine and Spirit Shop, the recently remodeled Wine and Spirit Shop Premium Collection here in the Pittsburgh area, and president of the local couldn't be with us that day. So today, Tony Helfer is here. He's president of Local 23, represents a lot of members out here in Western PA, but most importantly, the folks from the Pennsylvania Wine and Spirit Shops who work hard every day to keep Pennsylvania safe and generate a lot of revenue for all taxpayers of Pennsylvania, whether they drink or not.
All right, let's talk about what you see from your workers' point of view. Mm-hmm. Is there more cooperation and collaboration between upper management and those who are working the front line, the union workers, or do you still think we have a long way to go? And, Tony, it's great to have you on KDKA.
Well, thank you very much. I still think we have a long way to go. But there are some employers out there that do deal reasonably with their employees, and they value them. But it's still a struggle. The labor movement, it's always been a struggle. So I would say that we still have a long way to go before we get where we need to be.
There are some of those big conglomerates out there that are using lobbyists to chirp in the ear of those who are in Harrisburg to say privatization is the way we should go. You and I, Wendell, were talking about $80 million that was just kicked back into the state's budget coming from your workers and obviously those wine and spirit stores. Why is it, and we continue to preach to the choir, that nobody seems to listen, no matter who it would be, a major conglomerate or that mom and pop store down at the end of the block, no one's going to be able to do for the state of Pennsylvania what your workers do and these wine and spirit stores.
Rob, if you look at the independent polling on this, Pennsylvanians aren't interested in the subject. Majority of Pennsylvanians want the system maintained or improved. They don't want it privatized. This is all coming from groups like certain wholesalers who don't like the fact that Pennsylvania is the largest purchaser of wine and spirits in the country and can use that leverage to get a better price. So they want to take over the wholesale operations of the state. That's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. It's being driven by large retailers throughout Pennsylvania who want to get these products on their shelves and take the profit for themselves instead of the taxpayers of Pennsylvania enjoying them. And that's all this has ever been about for the last 40 years. Privatization is driven by those who see a valuable asset that works for all Pennsylvanians, whether they drink or not, and they want that money for themselves. It's all about the money. Follow the money, and you can understand this issue.
Mm-hmm. And that money, a lot of that money goes back to the workers who deserve a living wage. And those who want to privatize, Tony Helfer and Wendell Young, they're not thinking about the worker.
Well, if you look at the states that have privatized, let's use West Virginia as an example. In comparison to what the workers here in Pennsylvania get in the Liquor Control Board is a tremendous difference. A lot of the alcohol that's sold in West Virginia is at a Rite Aid store or in the corner of a Kroger location. You've got a few shelves of wine. So the difference is dramatic. Pennsylvania has given some respect to these workers here that work in the wine and spirit shops, and it shows in the quality of work that they give and the protection that they give to all Pennsylvanians by the selling of wine and spirits here in the state.
And I also think the consumer being cheated as far as selection, and we saw that in our last broadcast, Wendell, what you're able to do at these wine and spirit stores. And having the professional work the counter is also essential, as opposed to no disrespect to those who are working a checkout line. They're not trained to do that. That's not their job. So really, once again, not only are the workers being hurt, but the consumers being hurt.
Well, a great example is that location you spoke about. We were in a store that stocked nearly 10,000 different items of wine and spirits. And just look back 2 years ago, the company who drove the privatization initiative in Washington State was Costco, one of the nation's largest retailers. Costco admitted that in their entire inventory they carry about 400 items. The different, you have Representative Turzai running around saying we'll have better selection. The fact is, every one of our stores here in Pennsylvania carries thousands of items. You cannot go into any other state and every store have that selection. And in terms of prices, with the exception of Delaware, where they don't tax anything, and Maryland, where they have a very low excise tax, but they tax food and clothing, our prices are better than every one of our border states, and that's been proven by every independent survey. Our prices are better than most states in the nation. We should be talking about shipping out to customers all across the nation to make more money here in Pennsylvania for the taxpayers of Pennsylvania so we can provide better education funding. We should be talking about more flexibility in hours for the state-run wine and spirit stores so that we can improve the shopping experience so people don't feel like where they live near borders that they have to go into a border state because the stores are closed on Sunday or have limited hours. We should be talking about variable pricing that the PLCB is asked to do so they can offer better pricing models for consumers. All these things will bring hundreds of millions and more dollars in to the coffers of Pennsylvania. And you spoke with Tony about the better jobs here. It's true. We have far better jobs for the people that serve wine and spirits. It's the only thing we serve in these stores is wine and spirits. We're not selling donuts and candy and toys to kids alongside next to alcohol. We're serving alcohol, and that's it. And we do it responsibly with the least incident anywhere in the nation of service to minors or those intoxicated. Our communities are safer for it. Our workers are better compensated for it, and it's all paid for out of the revenue of the system. And after all that expense, a huge profit is turned over to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania. We need to work to save this valuable asset.
Good friend Wendell Young is here. He's the president of the UFCW Local 1776 and meeting for the first time and is passionate. We've got Tony Helfer here. He's the president of Local 23 of the UFCW. And here's something else, too. You preach professionalism. That's before and during and after the sale because you put a face with the name. These are the professionals you can ask questions with. And if it's not them verbally telling you or looking at you to make sure that you're okay to make this adult beverage purchase, when you walk out of the store, there is a sign that reminds you to be responsible. So we're talking about a big picture here. It's just not about cash and dash, Tony.
Exactly. And the wine stewards, as an example, in the wine and spirit shops, these people are trained so that they can help a customer in a way that you don't get in other states. They actually know the wines and what goes better with what dishes. We're trained not to sell to inebriated people, and our workers are trained to protect the asset. So it's not a profit-motivated thing where we have to sell so many bottles today or we have to move so much product. It's done responsibly. It's done with workers that are well-trained, and they're getting a fair wage for what they're doing. So everybody wins in this situation.
Got about a minute before a break. We're at the Wyndham Grand in downtown Pittsburgh. This is Pittsburgh Works, and starting tomorrow it'll be the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO Convention. I'm going to give you the final minute in this segment. Tony Helfer is here, president of Local 23 UFCW. What would you like to tell the audience about what you do every day 24/7?
Well, what we do is negotiate and stand up for workers in the state of Pennsylvania. We want people to be fairly compensated for the work that they do, and in turn, our members do a good job for their employers. And when you look at the wine and spirit shops as a perfect example where our members are responsible, they do a fantastic job, they protect the asset of the state of Pennsylvania, they're knowledgeable, that anybody can walk in and they can help you with any product choice that you want, can make recommendations. Most places can't do that. So, with this trained group of workers and they're getting a fair wage, we think that it's the right thing to do for everybody. It's an asset we want to protect here in Pennsylvania, and I think it's something that everybody should be looking up to and should want to emulate, is to be able to provide such a great product, great service, and good jobs.
As you look around all of these fine folks setting up, getting ready for tomorrow, lots of smiles. And here comes Jack Shea, ladies and gentlemen. We will talk after the break to the president of the Allegheny County Labor Council, our good friend Jack Shea. A lot of pride here. Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, their annual convention. Wyndham Grand, downtown Pittsburgh, starts tomorrow. We'll be back with more of Pittsburgh Works right after this on News Radio 1020 KDKA. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Pittsburgh Works. We're at the Wyndham Grand in downtown Pittsburgh. Tomorrow, the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO convention begins. And joining me on this hour of Pittsburgh Works is Wendell Young. He's the president of 1776 Local for the UFCW workers. And as I mentioned going into the break, our good friend Jack Shea is back, president of the Allegheny County Labor Council. This is Pennsylvania. How are you, sir?
Good, buddy.
This is Pennsylvania at its best, isn't it?
Right here today, and starting today. And goes through Thursday. Yep, and you'll see the labor leaders from all the different unions, from all the different silos of labor are here and making decisions and moving forward with it. And we have a very important election coming up this year, and we will be at our best. We got more boots on the ground than anybody can count, and that's anybody, by the way. And so we're looking forward to it, and we're going to go forward.
Your thoughts about this guy who really is a giant in labor?
Oh, Jack, I've known for quite a while.
Yes.
We worked together on helping to restructure the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO some years ago. That's how I got to know him first. I'm from the other side of the state, Philadelphia. I'd always heard about him, met him at a few meetings. But
his father was a very, very good friend of mine. Yes, sir.
So, great guy to learn from. He's one of the best.
Where are we right now on that scale of 1 to 10 as far as labor in Pennsylvania? How strong are we?
We're probably one of the strongest states in terms of density in the country. Certainly, if you look at Philadelphia in that general area, you look in this area of southwestern Pennsylvania, we're probably as strong as we've always been. We lose a couple of points here and there, but really, I say we're about the same. But we got to fight every day. I mean, it's every day. Somebody every day is trying to reduce the wages of middle class. They're trying to take away their benefits and shift costs to the middle cost from the employer to the employee. And we all know what they're doing to pensions. They're completely trying to eliminate pensions everywhere. They did it in the private sector. Now they're going to the public sector. And I'm telling you, God forbid our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, when they're getting ready to retire, they will not have nothing but Social Security.
Is it safe to say, gentlemen, that the union worker is the middle class of America? Without the union worker, there is no middle class?
No question about it.
Jack?
Well, the middle class has been shrinking, and it's been shrinking because of the likes of the Koch brothers and others who are pouring a lot of money into politics to make it harder for workers to organize, to make it harder for people, union and non-union, to earn a decent living, have a decent standard of living. And the only organized opposition to people like that and to these folks that operate under the Citizens United Supreme Court decision are the labor movement. People like Jack, who represent the Allegheny Council, the umbrella group of all the unions, like our local union, like the many people here at this convention. We've been through over 30 years of decline in this country of the wage standards and benefit standards, and that mirrors the shrinkage of union membership. Workers don't have the right to organize as it's stated in the National Labor Relations Act. That's why we need labor law reform. That's why we need political campaign finance reform so that working middle class can grow again, that we can have more jobs, better jobs, jobs that people can raise a family on. That's what the labor movement's in favor of. That's what most Americans want, but they're being pushed back by deep-pocketed, corporate, wealthy billionaires.
You know yourself, Rob, whether it be Aliquippa, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, when labor negotiated a good, solid agreement, the non-union folks got the same kind of wages, benefit increases, holidays, vacations, and I could go on and on and on. What you call in the business a Me Too agreement. They got the same benefit as the labor unions got. And right now, with our density going down all over the country, we're not getting the kind of labor, contract settlements that we once did. And what that does is that affects the whole middle class. Because, after the war, who created the middle class with our veterans who came back from World War II, they created the middle class. And they enabled all of us to have a couple of cars in the driveway. And I don't care if you're union or non-union. I just want everybody listening to you just to think of one thing. Mm-hmm. Has your wages in the last 20, 25, 30 years, have they flatlined? Hey, are you paying more for health care than you did? Oh, you can say, oh, yeah, but everybody's doing that. Well, the reason not everybody's doing that because people aren't fighting back, because people are really hurting. And it's just that simple.
You think people are just more timid because of the economy?
Not timid. It's, you want to use the word
apprehensive,
timid.
maybe?
Yeah, apprehensive I think is a better word. I think people saw their neighbors have layoffs, lose their jobs. They don't want to be in that position, but what they don't understand, it's like, if you keep your head down, they're not going to touch you. Well, guess what? They're touching you anyhow. Just look at how look how the middle class has shrunk in terms of finances. And if there's a graph on the internet, it's you can find it anywhere. Okay, it'll show you the middle class going down and the density of labor going down on the same track, and it's just that simple.
Talking about the men that came back from World War II, the greatest generation of all. I've talked about this many times. There were good-paying jobs waiting for them. responsibility, and I know this, Wendell and I've talked about it, and you and I have talked about it, to these veterans returning from Afghanistan.
Oh.
It really is important to find them a life-sustaining union wage, right, Jack?
Right. Well, it's funny. I was over the weekend, went to see a movie with my wife, and there was one guy dressed in a blue coat working in the theater. Now, you look at those, a bunch of kids out of high school, working in the theater. Well, he was in Fallujah. He must have just come back. Now, he wasn't in uniform. I didn't stop him. I heard it walking by him. I thought, the jobs are not here not only for the veterans. Now, in our building trades, they have helmets to hard hats where they help them the best they can to get a construction job with the skill sets. Because a lot of those kids got a lot of skill sets. I mean, they're not just over there walking around, They're directing a lot of people. They're worrying about a lot of people in this life and limb over there, So these kids don't have a shot. Either does the middle class, either does really people that want a good paying job with decent benefits. I'm telling you, it's getting to be a dinosaur, and we have to work towards making it come back, and I think we can do that.
Well, let's not forget that a lot of those people that served weren't kids. They were people who had good jobs, who were raised in families, that were a reservist and got called to duty, lost their job as a result of that, came back. Either the jobs were replaced or the companies weren't in the same position. They weren't able to reabsorb them, despite what the law says, and they've had a hard time reacclimating themselves back here. And at the same time, we have conservatives in Congress and the Senate of this country at the U.S. level who won't put the money out for the infrastructure jobs, for the redevelopment funds to help build the job base in this country like they did back after World War II. As the middle class grew then, our nation's economy did so well. A rising tide lifted everybody, as John F. Kennedy said. That's not happening here. These people are down here in Congress blocking every initiative our president's trying to do to create more jobs and better jobs, not only for service people returning, but for everybody in this country.
Not just about sustaining what we have, but it's about growing new jobs and good-paying union jobs in this country. The president of the Allegheny County Labor Council, Jack Shea, here at the Wyndham Grand, where tomorrow they will begin the 2014 Pennsylvania AFL-CIO Convention. Always an honor to have you on the air.
Rob, I appreciate you coming.
All right, we'll be back with Wendell Young and much more. Stay tuned. This is Pittsburgh Works on KDKA. Back here at Pittsburgh Works, it is Rob Pratte along with Wendell Young. He's the president of Local 1776 of the UFCW workers. And joining us on the third segment is Neil Bisno as we continue to broadcast from the beautiful Wyndham Grand downtown, where the 2014 Pennsylvania AFL-CIO convention begins tomorrow. Neil is the president of the SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania. All I can say is welcome to the Hornet's Nest. You got UPMC and Highmark in this city of ours, and I'll tell you, steel cage death match, pay-per-view, mano-a-mano, and when will it end? Just your thoughts.
Right. Well, it's a huge issue, and I live here in Pittsburgh. We represent a lot of health here, and as I'm sure you're aware, there is a huge amount of public interest and emotion really around the UPMC issue on a lot of different levels. I mean, we're talking about a $10 billion enterprise. It refers to itself as a global integrated health enterprise with operations as far away as Italy and Ireland, paying their CEO over $6 million a year, just bought a $50 million corporate jet, and is not only the largest employer in Pittsburgh, actually in the state of Pennsylvania, but the largest healthcare provider and the largest tax-exempt so-called purely public charity. A lot of people wonder whether UPMC deserves that designation given the way they behave. And some of the best examples are, here they are in the midst of threatening to cut off hundreds of thousands of Western Pennsylvanians from access to their doctors and their hospitals simply because they don't like the color of their insurance card. At the same time, they don't pay their fair share to support public services in this town, even though they're the largest landowner in Allegheny County. And, of course, too many of their employees who go to work there every single day are living in poverty, struggling to make ends meet, having to go to food pantries and rely upon public assistance, even though they work for the largest employer and one of the most profitable health systems in the whole country. So there's a lot of issues.
Neil Bisno is our guest on Pittsburgh Works. We're at the Wyndham Grand. Tomorrow, the 2014 AFL-CIO Pennsylvania will hold their convention. Neil Bisno is the president of the SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania. Let me just ask you, and I'm going to have Wendell jump in here too, because really it does come down to the workers. As far as when you look at the hierarchy at Highmark and UPMC, your opinion now, is it greed? Is it ego, or is it strictly business?
It's a combination of all of the above. And it's appropriate we're talking about it here at the State Fed Convention because I don't think I've seen an issue in my career in the labor movement where labor has come together, building trades, public services, private sector, manufacturing, all of the unions have really come together to call upon UPMC to change its behavior. Just a few weeks ago, we had the largest labor demonstration here in over 20 years in Pittsburgh. Thousands of Pittsburghers from all different unions, community groups, people of faith, ordinary citizens, coming down in bitterly cold weather right in front of the U.S. Steel Tower where UPMC is based to say it's time for this institution to change. We need to put people over profits. We need to put the best interest of this community over corporate greed. And hopefully at some point somebody on the 62nd floor of that building will start listening and they'll start working with the community and the workers to provide good jobs, starting at $15 an hour, to relieve the medical debt of healthcare workers who provide care to others, and to get out of the way and stop harassing people who are working hard to form a union.
Is there enough room in this town for both of them? And I would hope you would say yes, because again, here's how my opinion, and I look at it, Neil, it really comes down to the workers. And one job lost is one job too many.
There's definitely room for both these institutions. In fact, let's just make the record clear. People have their criticisms of Highmark, but this is a health system. This is a company that purchased a struggling health system in West Penn, Allegheny, and has saved thousands and thousands of jobs. We have a good relationship with Allegheny Health Network, the system that they purchased, and they want a relationship and a contract with UPMC. It's UPMC that's refusing to come to the table, refusing to bargain to renew that contract, and putting access, in-network, affordable access at risk for hundreds of thousands of Western Pennsylvanians. So, it's easy to put both of these institutions in the same category because they're both big healthcare institutions. And, there's plenty of criticism one could level at Highmark as well as at UPMC. But, the truth is that the real reason that we are having the issues that we are around healthcare in this region is much more because UPMC is behaving like a big for-profit corporation and putting profits over people than Highmark.
And from my point of view, I would think that if I were the hierarchy of UPMC, in my opinion now, I would want Highmark here because it keeps everyone honest, and competition is the best form of flattery. And I also think you don't want to be considered a monopoly because that can cause all sort of government problems, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, the truth is that if UPMC is successful in terminating its contract with Highmark, the result will be that there is really very little check on UPMC's dominance as a healthcare provider. They'll be able to dictate price. They'll be able to, resist efforts to improve quality. They'll be able to block efforts to make healthcare pricing and financial arrangements more transparent. Whether UPMC is technically a monopoly is a question for the Department of Justice or the Attorney General's office. But you ask most Pittsburghers in this town, do you think UPMC is acting like a monopoly? Is it too powerful? Is it a bully that's using its power to push patients and workers and taxpayers around? And you'll get a resounding yes. And that's because, this institution provides great care to a lot of people, but it really is behaving like a bully, not like a good community citizen.
And here, Wendell, this is where you jump in, and I think it's 65,000 and growing as far as employees at UPMC, and I could be off by a few thousand, but the bottom line is they're numero uno. So many of these people depend on their paychecks. So what happens? How do we protect them, even though there are allegations being made against the people that sign those paychecks?
So you have two parts of this. You have the part that involves the employees of the system themselves, but also the people they serve. Both of these organizations are not-for-profit entities that are supposed to be in the business of providing health care, good quality health care at a reasonable price to the people of this region. And they've both lost sight of that. They've both lost sight of it. They need to stop fighting like two corporate competitors in a cutthroat marketplace and start working together to go back to their core mission as a not-for-profit, both of them not-for-profits, and deliver health care at a reasonable price and forget about these differences. And clearly they've lost direction of their mission when they're flying around in $50 million aircraft with nearly 30 people in the executive suite making over $1 million a year. When people are struggling to pay their premiums, when their employees are struggling to pay their bills, when they're about to put people out on the street in terms of cutting off coverage, they've lost sight of what's important. They need to go back and focus on what is important. And if they don't do it, somebody ought to step in from the political, legislative, legal perspective and either shut them down or change the way they're doing business.
Neil Bisno, our guest president of the SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania. They don't have shareholders to answer to, and I've got less than a minute.
Yep.
Why are they banging the drum so hard? Who are they answering to?
Well, they need to answer to their stakeholders, employees, patients, and taxpayers. And I know we got just a couple minutes. You make a great point. This is the largest employer in Pennsylvania. The future of the middle class in this region depends upon them providing good jobs that you can raise a family on. It's simply wrong that a system made $1.6 billion in profits over the last 3 years has employees living in poverty. So they need to start listening to the people, work with the employees, the community, and the taxpayers to make UPMC what it should be, which is a community institution that helps build the middle class, doesn't stand in the way of the future of the middle class.
Neil Bisno, thank you very much. We'll be back with more Pittsburgh Works from the Wyndham Grand in moments. Back on Pittsburgh Works, we're at the Wyndham Grand in downtown Pittsburgh, and tomorrow the 2014 Pennsylvania AFL-CIO Convention begins. I'm with Wendell Young, who's been co-hosting with me this hour. He is the president of the Local 1776 of the UFCW, and joining us now, a pal of yours from the city of brotherly love, recently elected to council in Philadelphia in 2011, Bobby Henon, and also a proud member of the IBEW, Local 98 Electrical Workers. Great to have you here, and as I told Jack Shea from the Allegheny County Labor Council earlier, a lot of electrical union card-carrying men and women from the Labor Council here in Allegheny County. When you look at the face of labor in Pennsylvania, these conventions is I guess the best way to prove a point. It doesn't get any better than it does when it comes to labor in Pennsylvania. Bobby, welcome to KDKA.
Well, absolutely, Rob, and thank you for inviting me on the show, and I'm proud to be here with my dear friend Wendell Young, who represents his members. You can't get better service than what Wendell has done over the past several decades, and look forward to continue to work. Absolutely. First, in addition to that, I want to, give a great shout out to all the listeners and my labor community from Philadelphia, AFL-CIO. We say hello. And these conventions, you're absolutely, Rob, send a great message, all right, that we are organized and that we do care about our members and that we are paying attention. So I think, we have an organized labor that has a plan, to make sure that we have the tools and the resources to represent our members and to grow our membership here in the Commonwealth.
When East meets West, and there's somewhere in the middle, I guess, that we do meet each other. But let's talk about the tale of two cities. And you being on City Council, congratulations for being a public servant in a city that is at last report in the top 5 media markets in the country. So obviously you're in a fishbowl. When you look at Pittsburgh, is it a mirror image? Do you see some similarities compared to Philadelphia, your home base, at all?
Oh, without a doubt. And, when you say the tale of two cities, that's it's nice to be sensationalism like that, but we have a tremendous amount of commonality when it comes to who we are, the neighborhoods that we represent. Pittsburgh and Allegheny County is a city of and county of neighborhoods. City of Philadelphia, 1.5 and growing. City of Philadelphia is made up of a bunch of neighborhoods, working class, middle class families, where union, 1 out of every 3 people that come to the polls, 1 out of every 3 households have somebody that's a part of or affiliated with the labor movement, and we're proud of it.
When you think about the labor force in Philadelphia, and that's your home turf too, who is stronger? Or right now, could you say we're kind of neck and neck, Wendell?
You mean Pittsburgh and Philadelphia? No, I think we're pretty, unlike when we're talking football or something else, it's pretty even. All right. So, you have a great structure here in Western PA, and you think back to some of the iconic unions like Steel and the mines that came out of, the miners that came out of Western PA. In Philadelphia, I'm very proud. Our union is the first union in the country. A lot of people wouldn't know this, but the first union was the cordwainers, which were the shoemakers, the shoe repair people. They later became part of the UFCW. That local that was founded in Philadelphia is now part of my union in Philadelphia. Birthplace of liberty in this country, birthplace of liberty of people to have the right to organize unions as well. So we both have great histories, great strong cultures, and it's what makes Pennsylvania, as Jack Shea said, one of the better places. Guys like Bob Henon help make Pennsylvania one of the better places. He's a terrific fighter for labor as an electrical worker union member and a political director there, but also as a city councilman, in Philadelphia. He's there, fighting for all workers, union, non-union, and never forgets where he came from. And so when you see issues like this past year, the fight to get infrastructure funding it's about, jobs, but it's also about improving communities, providing jobs, having that multiplier effect to raise standards in a community. And Bob was a big part of that. And the unions that he works with, a big part of making sure that things like that happen here in Pennsylvania, because it wasn't just for Philadelphia, it was for Pennsylvania.
You think of the Declaration of Independence, the Liberty Bell, Founding Fathers. I mean, let's face it, Ben Franklin, you think of this country, you think of Philadelphia. You guys and gals will fight over a Philly cheesesteak. A lot of passion there. But are you very protective of your turf, too, and especially your workers, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. And, that's why us as leadership in the labor movement are so extremely proud of our membership. And we are only as good and only as smart as the members that participate and that get involved with their local union. Right? We are the community that's out there coaching our boys clubs and our girls clubs, are participating in the places of worship and your town watches. We make up the fabric of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And if you take a look at the history, so with Local 98, we're going on our 115th year from inception. We're extremely proud of that. My business manager, John J. Doherty, is a pretty aggressive labor leader in not just the city, but in the Commonwealth. And, I'm proud to be a part of his team, and I'm proud to stand with the entire labor movement, men and women, all right, who just want to go to work with respect and dignity and have a good retirement and health care, so they can have dignity with their family and the communities.
I'm one that believes to look at that glass half full as opposed to half empty. I'm always trying to preach good news. So give me some good news on the labor front. What do you see spiking the meter that gives you hope as far as labor in and around Philadelphia?
I'll tell you what, the anti-labor sentiment from national Koch brothers and of the like is doing a great job. They are the biggest labor organizers that I've seen, because it has brought this state and the city of Philadelphia together as one in solidarity. A clean example from the CCAP, the organization that was formed in 1886 for all our county commissioners, just fought back a resolution with the paycheck protection, trying to take our inherent right, as Wendell had just said, the right to organize, try to take that away from us. And if you keep having assaults like that on our core principles, you're going to see labor better, stronger, more organized, and technically advanced. It's 2014, and we have all the tools to stay alive and progress.
Bob's right. With folks like Darrell Metcalf and Mike Turzai in the legislature here in the House, they thought they were going to be able to roll through right to work for less legislation like the Paycheck Protection Act, and that just galvanized not only the labor movement but people in general here. Last week at that conference of the county commissioners, overwhelmingly rejected those initiatives, and in fact the proposals were withdrawn. And that happened because Pennsylvanians just aren't going to put up with that nonsense. They're not getting away with what they did in Wisconsin and elsewhere here.
When you think about the lottery and you think about these fine wine and spirit stores, you think about the turnpike, it's got to give it up and just face facts. Leave it alone. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it.
Well, there's a reason this governor's got the worst numbers of any governor anywhere. But that alone, those polls aren't going to end his term. People still have to get out and vote, and they have to vote for an alternative. They got some good alternatives to vote for this fall. And we need to change governors to put an end to this nonsensical debate about selling off and giving away government assets and this race to the bottom that this governor has started. He wants everybody in this state to work for basically Walmart wages and no benefits.
Bob Henon of Philadelphia, Councilman, also a longtime member of the IBEW Electrical Workers Local 98. Thanks for joining us on Pittsburgh Works.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks for having me. And thank you to my friend Wendell Young.
Good seeing you.
Thanks. Great job.
We'll be back. Back with our final segment on Pittsburgh Works. Wendell Young, I want to thank you for being such a fine host, and to everyone here at the Wyndham Graham staff and management have just been fantastic, getting set for the 2014 Pennsylvania AFL CIO Convention, which starts tomorrow. Now, you and I, let's talk about the business at hand, privatization. Will it ever come to a screeching halt and they will just let a sleeping dog lie, or do you think the fight will go on and on and on?
No, it'll never stop. It's been here for 40 years. It heats up when you get a Republican governor and both chambers of the legislature controlled by Republicans. So you saw it with Governor Thornburg, Governor Ridge, and now again with with Governor Corbett, our current governor. It's not going to stop because there's too much money involved. The system is very profitable. It benefits all Pennsylvanians, whether they drink or not. It pays all its bills, turns over $500 million in profit and revenue to the state of Pennsylvania. And the retailers and the wholesalers in the private sector, they want to get their hands on that. And as long as they have lobbyists in Harrisburg and that money is out there, they're going to try and get their hands on it. That's what this is all about. It's about other people's money. That's all it is.
When it comes to privatization and labor, one always has thought, and you don't have to be a political guru or someone who does it for a living, meaning one of those think tank organizations. Is this a Republican and Democratic issue? Those who are Republican want to privatize. They're not for the union worker, and those who are Democrat are polar opposite.
That would be too simple, because there are Republicans that realize that this is not a smart thing to do. And you know, here you have both chambers controlled by the Republicans and a Republican in the governor's house, and they still aren't able to get it done. So it shows you that there are Republicans who are not ultra-conservative wingnut teabaggers that get it, that realize that this is a valuable asset and that we ought to improve it. I think Senator Scarnati said it very well earlier in this debate. Let's take the handcuffs off the PLCB. That's the agency that runs the wine spirit shops. Let's let them show that that they can do more. If the legislature lets them do more, let's improve the hours. Let's improve the pricing. The selection's already good. It's hard to improve that, but let's help improve the delivery of it. Let's allow some direct shipment from wineries and producers directly to Pennsylvanians' homes. You know, there's a lot of things we can do to not only improve the consumer experience. Let's what they call right-locate more stores, get them next to supermarkets and even inside supermarkets. There's about 20 locations that the PLCB operates that are inside supermarkets. They rent space just like banks and other businesses do. You know, let's make it more consumer-friendly. Let's therefore also improve the revenue to Pennsylvania, and let's make it a better asset and a better customer experience. You don't have to give away the asset to the private sector to do that. And every state that had a system like ours that gave away their asset to the private sector, they lost revenue, they lost selection, prices went up for the consumers higher than their surrounding states. We don't have to hose the taxpayers. We don't have to hose the consumers. You know, we have a good thing. We ought to improve it.
Let's talk about the difference between fine wine and spirits and fine wine and good spirits and what we saw in our last broadcast in Pines Plaza Shopping Center and what a lot of consumers are going to be seeing popping up in the weeks and months and years to come.
So we were out at that store here in the Pittsburgh area at Pine Plaza, I think you called it.
Right.
That's a great example. Go out and check out that store, and there's others like it, but it's one of the more recently what they call rebranded, remodeled locations. It has much bigger selection. It's a beautiful store. We've had a lot of people around the state walk into that kind of store and think that these are run by private companies because they're so darn nice. The services are great. They run tastings. Local supermarkets send food over to go with those tastings and partner with them in the community. The revenue in terms of profitability increases by between 20 and 40% in each of the locations. The PLCB opened close to 80 of those in the last 2 years. For 2014, they have another, I think, 78 or 79 planned, and they would like to ramp that up and double and triple that effort over the next 2 or 3 years. And the only thing that's standing in their way is Mike Turzai, the House Republican leader, and Governor Corbett, because the things that the PLCB would like to do to be able to better run this agency, the legislature would have to change some laws to let them do that. And you have some people like the governor and the House leader who would rather give away the asset to their friends with money than let the system improve.
If these jobs are lost, let's look at the landscape. There is not jobs of equal caliber out there to replace these lost jobs. So it is more important now than ever to get the message out to preserve these jobs. I mean, really, it's just panic time.
Rob, this is true. You know, you have a lot of politicians who talk about we need more jobs, we need better jobs. But this governor and this House leader has actually been driving a race to the bottom for lower pay, creating lower paid jobs, and that's exactly what they're going to do here. The governor's own study says that if you sell this system off and privatize it, very few new jobs are going to be created. Most of them are going to be part-time, retail, minimum wage jobs. The fact is the people that would buy the licenses already operate stores, already have employees, already have space. They're just going to reallocate the space and the work assignments to the current employees, most of whom are retail and minimum wage with no benefits. You know, that's pushing standards down. That's a race to the bottom.
And let's face it, the money that you're kicking back into the state's coffers is not going to be made up. That's going to be lost forever, too. So this is a lose-lose.
No state that had a system like ours that privatized did better. They all did worse. They lost a lot of money. Pennsylvania will also.
Listen, I can't thank you enough, and I know you're really excited about being here. I'll just give you the final 30. It doesn't get any better when you look at the face of labor when you come to the PA AFL-CIO convention, which will start here tomorrow at the Wyndham Grand.
This is a great place to be right now. We do this every 2 years to help set legislative agendas, policy, elect leadership. These are workers from all different unions all across Pennsylvania, from very small rural towns and valleys to big cities like Philly and Pittsburgh. We're all here for one thing only, and that's to set an agenda to help improve the lives of working Pennsylvanians and their families. And we're really proud to do that work and be part of it. And thank you for taking the time to have us on to talk about all this, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Honor being here with you. Pittsburgh Works. Wendell Young, ladies and gentlemen, the president of Local 1776 of the UFCW. Thanks for joining us.